than the rest of white men had in common. Like the cowboys and the Indians, if as long as the Indians weren't stealing the cattle or the horses, like they got along pretty damn good. But there was that same type of spirit. They're kind of nomads, kind of gypsies, or kind of Indian. Like a lot of like Charlie Russell and Teddy Abbott. Teddy Blue. Uh, they all talked about feeling a lot of kinship. They weren't afraid to kill an Indian, but they felt far more in common with the Indian lifestyle than they did kind of civilized life. And but that and the same way the Indians didn't have a written language for a long time, so everything they knew got passed down through stories.
Yeah. No, that's something else. But yeah, it's funny you're mentioning the Indians and all that stuff. I had mentioned that I had just started watching that in 1883. Man, that's something else too. That was
Yeah.
I you tend to forget how people used to live back in the day or how the pioneers did. I remember playing Oregon Trail as a kid on a computer, but I was just I was thinking, man, like the skills that Indians have and the skills that cowboys have, you know what I mean? It's something that can go a long way. That's how it started. That's how it started. How people started living and stuff, pretty much.
Oh yeah. I'd like to. Well, and that's kind of what, like, I really like talking to Boots because he's seen kind of the old way of, like, he was on the tail end of the really old way of doing stuff when he started cowboying. So he's kind of seen just about everything. But even then, he still didn't get to see the spots where you're just out there like, hey, this is my land now. And but also that meant you had to defend it too. So like you could run cows out there as long as you could keep them, and but I wonder, like, you take some of those, say, somebody like Charlie Goodnight or Richard King or the guys that worked for him, and sit them down with the cowpunchers and buckaroos of today, and hear some of those stories. I mean, because like there's I don't know who would get a word in edgewise, just because they would be so amazed with the shit that we could do with our technology. Like, I mean, just a pickup and trailer. Like the fact that we have a pickup and trailer and we can go haul 100 miles if we have to. Uh, and then also us just like, holy shit, how did you guys even live? Like, how did you survive?
And it's funny you mentioned that because uh, I know some hands down there in Pearsall, Texas, and pretty damn good hands. I mean, they've been cowboying for probably 3, 4 generations, and they've been hands for most of their lives. That's what they didn't own the cattle, and top hands. But I would probably consider, at least in my part of the country, they're known. Thing about it is the guy's getting older now. He's talking about dart guns. And, it's just the way things are way easier nowadays. And
Mm-hmm.
I get a dart gun, dart one down, pull up to it my trailer, tie it down, pull up to my trailer, get my horse loaded up, and that's a cat's job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild how much everything has just changed over the years, and but like there's still that, like, it took a certain type of person back then, like even back then people would have rather lived in the city than go out and I mean, because like we go out and like I go ride pins, but like your typical cowboy job, you'll go out prowl pastures and whatnot, and it's pretty rugged, pretty rough, but it ain't the frontier. I mean, it ain't the frontier. It's
No, that's
but like
it's the
so.
rugged.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I said it's the rugged and rough plus the frontier.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and yeah, so it's kind of crazy. I mean, we do have obviously we got a way better, and there's a lot of times you think it'd be way cool to go back and do something like that, but then also you read some of these books or you watch a show like 1883. A lot of people didn't like it because of language or what the fuck ever, because we're cattle people and we'll bitch about anything anywhere at any time just to be contrary. And also, like, we don't, I don't know, what for whatever reasons, a lot of people don't like that 1883. I liked the shit out of it. I really enjoyed watching. I thought they did a good job with the storytelling. Um, and I thought they did a pretty good job as far as historical accuracy. Are they as good a writers and cowboys as we are? Probably not. But guess what? Those old folks back then weren't either. That Tim McGraw's character was a fucking farmer. Like, he rode a horse because he had to, but he wasn't a cowboy. You know, like everybody rode, but there's people that can ride and there's people that can't. There's people that cowboy for a living that can't ride worth a fuck. You know, and but I just you see all that stuff, and like where you forget to boil your water one time and you shit yourself to death, and there's nothing really you can do to stop it. You just gotta hope you stop shitting at some point. And so I'm also really fucking glad I live now, because we know things, and we got shit that can clear sickness up and whatnot. But also, like, I do just miss that, like, as long as you're willing to fight for your life and what you got, like, you were fucking free, man. Like, you were free.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, he didn't have big government, that's for sure.
That's for damn sure. Well, or at least not out in these areas. You might have had it back east a little bit, but out here, not so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, it'd be a while before you found out you had a guy with dementia in office.
Yeah, it's funny as I need to ask Boots about this, but he was saying, you know, he was out on the wagon one time in the 50s, and like something passed through Congress, and he didn't find out for about it till like a month later when he when he went back to headquarters. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is that something you heard or something like that you read? I heard of something like that a while. I can't remember. I don't know if I saw it in the movie, but something similar to that. They didn't know because it, of course, news didn't travel as fast. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's really wild. Well, he told me when I didn't hear that particular story, but he told me on another one, like he when he was a kid. I mean, he was a kid when Pearl Harbor got bombed, and he said he remembers it very clearly because his parents were all sorts of upset that Pearl Harbor had just been attacked, but as far as he knew, that was just another part of the ranch, because they were living on Wagner's or the JA or something, one of those big ranches in the Panhandle. And as far as he knew, that Pearl Harbor was just another part of the ranch, and so he had no idea where it was, and it's just it's kind of crazy, but I'd read that somewhere. Or maybe somebody told me. I can't remember, but I heard that story about Boots, like not knowing something that had passed through Congress for like a month, just because there was no radio out there. There was no cell phones, so. But I'll ask him. I'll call him on Sunday. I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, well, I had heard. Well, I mean, I'm sure it happened plenty of times, especially way before. Especially way back before Pearl Harbor and stuff. I think the one that I heard, like back in the old days, and somebody they forgot. I forgot what it was. I know I just recently, but this is a little bit long further than that. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, there was. I mean, even after they signed the ceasefire, or when Lee surrendered at Appomattox. There was still fighting out on the western edges for months afterwards, because it just took that long to get a message out there, and that was kind of they were on the cutting edge of technology back then. They had telegraph lines,
I seen the. Not to mention that guy Boots. I mean, I kind of saw him. I got to know of him all through, so like in the internet and whatnot.
Mm.
And um, so hold on, let me get this. Yeah, so he was talking about the cell phone and how the cell phone changed the game. You know, that's like, I mean, I can imagine for somebody who's been around that long, it for sure changed the game.
Oh man, and like for good and bad. Like probably it's hard to say. It's hard to say mostly bad, because honestly, I think there's a ton of good. Like how many guys didn't have to crawl back to headquarters with a broken leg because they had a cell phone, you know? And there's a lot of good that come out of it. There's a lot of bad too. It's more irritating than bad. You know, I mean, it's maybe sets a bad precedent, but overall, I don't think it's not the biggest evil that has ever come across the cowboy world. It's and also some of those cool stories that always get told, you know, around you know, when you're at the bar, around the campfire, at the Brandon or whatever. Used to, those are just stories, and sometimes you'd have a witness to back you up. But now you can capture that shit on your phone, and the regular people that don't do what we do get to see that shit too, and then it kind of puts everything into perspective. Not only why we like doing this shit, but also like why we don't consider what we do animal abuse. When you see just how big these creatures are, and when you watch a guy get kicked across the face, and he's out cold, you're like, man, it puts everything into perspective, because like we don't rope and choke cattle because we don't like them. You know, it's like that's how you have to handle them. They're almost domesticated, but they're still you even you know your basic kind of basic bitch old Hereford. You get her pissed off enough, she's gonna kick. She's gonna run your ass over. Whatever, you know. They're still a wild animal at heart, and that's just how you have to control them when you're outside, or just unless you got to shoot in front of you. Like there's you still have to get them to the shoot too. I mean, it's and you're
Yeah,
dealing with a wild animal. And
I had a rope and steer go at my son yesterday, and he was the weakest one out of the herd. I said, God, I mean, just I thought he was on his deathbed, and anyway, I mean, like you said, it's just you just never know. But going back to recording too, me and my buddy were talking about that. I forgot what it was, but he ended up talking about is, man, you know, back in the day we didn't have cell phones. I mean, he's like, well, you know, what kind of phones did we have? I think we had like Nokias and stuff. We thought we were cool when we had a Motorola Razor. They didn't have
yeah,
cameras on. Yeah, they
yeah,
didn't have
and
cameras.
you couldn't even tell what was going on in the picture in the taken from that razor. Like you had the picture, but like still people wouldn't believe you, because you're like, oh, what am I looking at? It just
Oh, the struggle of
yeah,
these young kids. I'm telling you,
I know it.
God,
It's
I've seen it with GoPros.
oh man, the GoPro is so cool. Like I need to start carrying it more often. It's I kind of got away from it because it takes well, 4K quality video. So like that takes up a lot of space on a computer when you or your phone when you start transferring videos over and shit. But it's really cool, is because I can just like I always when I was carrying it all the time, I wore like a chest harness. It was weird
Yeah.
and shit. It looked like I'd take my shirt off when I got home in the summer. It looked like I was wearing a sports bra because the straps. uh, but I could wear that on like a little chest harness, and if I thought something cool might happen, I just reach up and tap record, and and it was off, but it'll turn on, or I could it's voice activated too, and then you just have that, and more often than not, there wasn't anything cool, but still, if something cool did happen, I could catch it right there, and I've got I don't know how many videos of me just like throwing a loop, and like, God damn it, fuck, God damn it.
Oh,
But every now and then you catch something cool, yeah, and it's just as clear as day. It's just like you're right there watching it, and it's all from your point of view too.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild. With the economy the way it is anymore, I quit saying that those things were pretty cheap because
Hmm.
everything's expensive. But like back in the good old Trump days when we had money
Come on.
to when we had money to burn and we didn't have to spend $150
Yeah.
on a tank of
Oh,
gas. Uh,
come on.
yeah, you could drop $300 on a GoPro pretty easy, and you got like the some of the best technology on earth, and guess what? Like they expect you to kick the shit out of it because that's what it's made for. Like they want you to beat it up, and it's still just like amazing what you can get with those, but it's yeah, it's wild. But then you also got to be careful what you post out there, especially if you work for somebody, because boss man might get mad. I had to pull down a video from TikTok the other day because my boss's boss somehow come across it, and bastard didn't even follow me back. Damn it.
No, yeah, it's
No,
pretty
it's
crazy. Yeah, that's why sometimes you got to be careful. Like if you do work for outfits or whatever, you really can't put all the details of, because everybody knows people get by with doing certain things, and you know what I mean. You,
yeah. See, that's what the Patreon's for. It's not only can I hopefully someday make a little money out of this, but also like if somebody wants to hear this shit that bad, you can pay uh to listen to it, and then yeah, and then it's there. It's behind a paywall, and only the people that actually want to hear it can hear it. And if your boss really wants to hear it, well, guess what? He can pay $5.
pay
At least
$5.
I'll be $5 richer when he fires my ass. So whatever.
Yeah, I kind of, I used to, I used to, I used to full time be a day hand, but I just kind of, like I said, I'm a little bit different. I'm not gonna sit here. I'm a good hand. I know there's plenty better, but the ones that get out there and grind every day, I used to do when I was younger. They're pretty. They're cut. They're cut of a different. What would be the right thing? Cut. Different cloth. Man, they're cut from a
Yeah,
different cloth. They're yeah.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's a whole different deal when you're working for yourself too. Like when you're just you're full time day hand. That's a different because you got to run that shit like a business. I mean, that's like you can't your buddy can't be a buddy and only pay you for half a day because it only took half a day. No, no, I planned my day ahead of time. Like and when you're hiring me for the day, you're paying me for the day. And and so it's a whole different deal. Whereas like if you work on a big outfit, yeah, you're gonna have to go ride out in the morning every morning, but also you got to cook, you got housing, and it's a different deal. You're just yeah, you don't have to worry about your pickup running. Like all you got to do is roll out of the bunkhouse or your teepee and go to Cowboy. And so there's a whole different. It's just amazing to me how different it is from hand to hand to hand. There's just some guys will braid rawhide or do leather work or braid horsehair on the side. Some guys will ride colts. Some guys will do both. Some guys will write a poem, and it just they're everybody's got their own something different.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean that's yeah. You know what's funny? It's like I'll be honest with you. I've never the closest to I've never had a feedlot riding job.
Mm-hmm.
Closest thing I've ever had to that was I worked with this one outfit, but they also ran lease country. Excuse me, and but it was just like registered cows, and obviously I'd work the cows. I was the only cowboy in that deal, so I'd doctor whatever had to be doctored, anything that was on the ground, get it tagged, whatever. Every once in a while, like ride the fence line, run a feed truck, and then I fixed a little bit of fence line as a young kid, but I've never, I kind of, as a young kid, I did a lot of fence line before I started doing a lot of that's how I kind of started. And then I guess if you want me to tell you how this happened, if you want to hear this horse story, I guess I can tell you how it happened.
All right.
But I call it a horror story because obviously there was a lot of work involved. But I started really doing the cowboy thing when I was probably 17 years old. I'm 39 now. I just wanted to be a team roper, dude. You know what I mean? That's all I wanted to be. Yeah, and then I had kids and ended up, through this guy that had been, took me under his wing, just teaching me how to do a lot of things, and that's how I got. But having the kids put me into the working position, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we did a lot of small little catch jobs. Did a lot of we used to run a whole bunch of rope and steers of rope beans and haul cattle here and there. And then I ended up getting that job. Like I told you, the closest thing that I could say to like a feedlot, because I know every operation is different,
Yeah.
And so that was about the closest thing that I ever got to like being. I'd feed cattle, move hay, haul hay, and all that other stuff. Wasn't on horseback every day, but I was on horseback quite a bit. It was maybe like two out of the 6 days, I was on horseback.
Mm.
But then a buddy of mine picked up this one guy who got into the cattle business, kind of like you can hear me, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. He gets he meets this one guy that gets into the cattle business, and shit, man, that's where it got wild, man, for a good.
Yeah.
Let me see, I'm 17, so it'd be like 22 years of cowboying. But maybe like the past 15 were past 12, because I've kind of been out of the game. I've been part-time in it for about 3 years,
Yeah.
But it got pretty rowdy, man. It was something different for sure. It definitely burned me out, that's for sure. Burned me out big time.
Yeah,
what's that?
I would say it's wild. When you're doing stuff, well, and it's kind of comes with any part of the cowboy world. I spent most of my growing up, I from 10 till I graduated high school, all my cowboy work was done down in southeast Colorado, down in that canyon country, kind of from like Pritchett, Colorado, all the way down into Oklahoma and New Mexico, and just that like three corners area of the country, and some pretty big open country, pretty rugged country. And then I went up to college. I went up to Montana right out of college and worked on a big ranch out there. It was, as far as Nevada goes, it's not that big, but it's still pretty damn. It was over 100,000 acres and 3,500 head of mama cows, and it's a pretty big outfit. But it wasn't like a cowboy outfit. It was more of a ranch hand outfit. It was mostly cowboy work, but you did some fencing, you did some irrigating. It was ranch hand work. And then I went into the feedlot, and the first feedlot I went to, and I knew I'd been on, stepped foot in a feedlot a couple times, like through FFA and whatnot. But I never really worked at a feedlot. I'd worked at a sale barn a time or two. But most of my experience cowboying was out in pretty big country. And then I went to the biggest feedlot in Kansas, 120,000 head. straight up corporate outfit. And, I learned so much in that year and a half. I counted, because I'm a kind of a math, I wouldn't say like a math nerd, but like I'm a numbers kind of nerd sometimes. And, like I did I figured out what our average amount of cattle received every day was, and like I think I was 9 months in on this job, and I had counted over 1 million head of cattle. Not a million individuals, but like from receiving them and shipping them, taking them from processing, whatever. And I just did from receiving, shipping, and then like counting them out of the processing pins, because we sorted like 7 ways or something like that, and it was over 1 million head of cattle that I figured I'd counted in a 9 month period. I mean, it was insane, just the volume, and you see shit from all over. You see some of the nicest northern cattle, to some of the some rangy brush popper cattle, to the straight up Florida swamp rats. I mean, it's and then everything in between. Like the Ozark cattle are just like the Ozark people. They're inbred as shit, and they. But then I started from there. I've worked at, well, now this is my second other yard since there, and it's funny. Like, I went from corporate, which is I can I understand a lot, like what Boots has done his whole life, because he's always worked for big outfits. And on those big outfits, you got one job and one job only. Like, if you hire on a cowboy, you're a cowboy. Like, you're not hired on to be the feed guy. You're not hired on to be the fence guy. I mean, you're probably expected to fix a little fence if you come across it when you're riding, but you're not on the fencing crew. You're on the cowboy crew, and that's how it was at those big yards. Like, outside of like the manager trainees, nobody really crossed departments. Like, you had your shipping and receiving, you had your processing, you had your cowboy crew, you had your doctor crew, you had your feed crew, you had your tank washing crew. Just and that's what you did. Like, they always preach like you're expected to go above and beyond, but yeah, that very rarely happened. You did what you were paid to do, and that was it. And then as you move to the smaller type yards, it's kind of like moving in from a big outfit to more of a mom and pop type deal. You're expected to do more. Like, probably, and the bad thing is they're not as big of an outfit, so they probably don't even pay as well. But they give you a lot more freedom too, and like, you don't have as many rules. You don't, but you're expected to do more. And it's, I don't know. And the feedlot business is the same way. Like, the smaller you get, the more you're expected to do, but also probably they treat you a little bit better too. Like, they at least they appreciate you a little bit more.
Well, you see, and that's the thing though. That's like, my family had like a little business, so I picked up the trade. So I mean, that was never really worth it for me. I mean, I'd rather, I could probably stay and do that and not fix fence, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
some shit like that, or so. But now and then, that's when now I just pretty much stick to just catch jobs around here, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear the stories about that shit, because like I said, I've been to maybe a few feedlots that we've rented their pens from. They'll haul, so we can work cattle down there for a few days. But I've never been actually a part of a feedlot operation or what'd you say, that the like a corporate type deal? Yeah, we've pretty much gotten by with very little. I mean, some of them. I mean, and I know I'm sure you've gone to go pen some cows and done a few catch jobs, and what kind of pens you're looking forward to with the mom and pop operation.
Oh yeah, yeah. They don't have the money to put in steel fence a lot of times, and and the gates never swing right. And if they swing at all, like if you can open them a horseback, that's like you're way ahead. You know, like if you can open a horse or your gate without having to step down and drag it, like that's a good day.
Yeah, yes, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. We so I've had a like a freakishly unique feedlot career because I went from you know this big outfit up in Montana on the highland, living my best Monty Walsh life, just living in a bunkhouse during a Montana winter. That's something I wouldn't recommend. Like I think if you survive one of those, it definitely makes you tougher and kind of thickens your blood a little bit. So you can handle the cold a little easier. I still don't like the cold, but I can handle it because I've been through like I know nothing where I'm living now or back home. There's nothing a winter can throw at me in this part of the world that Montana can't just like laugh and be like, all right, hold my beer. Well, let's see what I can do. Like Montana's a different beast. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, I went to this big corporate outfit and like just for the like to give you an idea for the sheer volume of cattle that we'd get. So you probably heard about the Flint Hills run, like the Flint Hills of Kansas stocks. I don't know how many feeder or stocker cattle in the summer, but that tall grass prairie can support a ton of cattle. So they pack them in real heavy during the summer, and then the from the end of July to like the first part of September is the Flint Hills run, and that's when everybody starts shipping off of that tall grass. And like we had one contract there at at Five Rivers from it used to be called, or before I got there, it was called Panther City Cattle Company, and they owned a bunch of ranches there in the Flint Hills. I forget what they it's like El Coyote Ranch or something like that. But that one contract was for 30,000 head. 30,000 head of cattle coming off the Flint Hills, and it was all within a month. So averaging 1,000 head a day that you're receiving just off of this one contract, plus all the other Flint Hills contracts that came in. And we typically didn't work Sundays when I started there. It was on the processing, shipping, receiving crew, and the Cowboy crew would typically unload cattle on Sundays for us, and so we typically didn't work Sundays. But Flint Hills, like you'd probably get called in, and I unloaded, weighed, and pinned 42 loads of of cattle in a 3 hour period. I mean, it was fucking insane. Those trucks, they'd start rolling in about noon, and it was just solid line of trucks coming up that driveway till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it was just nonstop. And then from there, I went to, it was also a corporate yard, Cactus Feeders, but it was a lot smaller. It was like about 35,000 head that we ran there. And then like a year and a half into that, they came in and fired 30 people or laid off 30 people, and we shut down our finished feeding operation, and we started running cow-calf operation in the feedlot. And I spent I guess like 3 or 4 years. I was there almost 6 years, and I think 4 of those years was when we were doing cow-calf. And we started with like 650 head of mama cows, and at one point we had 7,000 all in the feedlot. And we had 3 different calf crops. We had like your traditional January Kevin heifers there towards the end. and then we had a spring crop and a fall crop. And if you weren't calving out, you were processing or you were weaning and breeding, and it was just nonstop. And then from there, went to for where I'm at now, and it's a background yard. We have some really busy times of the year, but we have some really really slow times of the year, and it's more of a ranch type atmosphere than like a your traditional feedlot type. So I've been fortunate enough to see quite a little bit, and I don't know. There's a lot of times where I'd rather be out prowling big country, but also that prowling big country doesn't pay as well as a feedlot. So, yeah, what are you gonna do? I got wife and kids now, so the big outfit cowboying's probably over for me. I'll get to go day help or something here and there, and that's kind of like my true cowboying gig is just getting to day work here and there.
So, let me ask you a question. I mean, what kind of cows do they run up there? You know, do they ever run like Bramer types and, you know?
Yeah, when you get into eastern and southern Nevada, when it's more of your sure enough desert type, because we're most of Nevada is a desert. I mean but it also has more mountain ranges than any other state in the country, and but like you get into eastern Nevada and southern Nevada, especially southern Nevada when it gets real hot. Yeah, they run a lot of rangy Bramer types, and but I mean, you know how the market is now. Everybody's got black cattle. I mean, even your even your Bramer types, they still want them black because they're going to sell better. That's just how the market is. And yeah, then you get up into your high country here, and then you get your your typical northern type cattle, Angus, black baldies, and you get a few Charolais and Hereford, but yeah, it's you get some eared cattle in the southern and eastern part of the state, but here where I'm at, it's mostly English and continental types.
Yeah, I was curious. I said, man, God, I mean, I know how crazy they can be sometimes. I'm just wondering what they'd be like out there on some mountains. I don't think they'd be much fun.
I don't know those Bramer type. I've always noticed like the straight Bramers, they'll move. Like you have no problem getting them to move, but they're not all that waspy for the most part. They're pretty docile. But you cross them with in particular if you get like the continental types. Like if you cross them with a Charolais or a Limousine or some of those, like man, something goes crazy in their brain and they get kind of fucking mean.
You're spot on that, because I mean we've made that observation too. I mean that's what we work, a whole bunch of Brahmas but most importantly we do mess with a lot with like the Tiger Stripe with your Bradfords, Bradfords, and it's funny you say that. I mean you'll have more trouble with the Tiger Stripe than you will with the full breed Brahma. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because like if you take a Hereford and a Bramer, like they're honestly two of the most docile breeds on earth. Like you can't hardly get a Hereford to move, and you can't stop a Bramer from moving. But they're typically not gonna try to run your ass over, either one of them. But then you cross them, and my God, that is one of the meanest animals on earth. Like they will straight up come hunting you, and yeah, it's a good thing they don't have teeth. It's a really good thing that cattle don't have teeth because man, they did fuck.
That's what's been moving hot by where we're at. I mean, F1 Tiger Stripe has been selling hot. That's the business that this one particular outfit I've been working with for Wow, they're into the replacement heifer, the tiger stripe replacement heifer. So I mean, they're young, they're ornery, they're after it, man.
And athletic as shit. I
Oh,
mean, how many Brayfords do you see in at the PBR finals? Man, like that. Those suckers can get it. The Hereford's always been known as being just a tough, just a dirty tough mama, like not particularly aggressive, but tougher than hell. And then the Brahma's just been known to just be like just long and lean and fast and jumps high. I mean, yeah. And then you cross those two together and you get dirty tough and can jump high, and then also meaner than hell. Like just it's wild how
yeah.
you can take those two and have a pretty gentle set of cattle, and you cross them, and oh man, hold on.
I'm pretty sure there's probably who's ever gonna watch this part and hurt this part is probably agreeing. They're probably, yep, it's true, man.
Yeah.
I've been around long enough to know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna, it blows my mind, like, because like I said, all I've ever worked is down here in South Texas, but I've seen, like different countries, different cattle, different breeds. Everything's a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, y'all obviously run a lot more country than we do. You know what I mean? But it's just something else.
Yeah, it's wild. I just kind of I always try to think back to like those like the cowboys that came over with the conquistadors. Like they they bring the cows over, and I can't imagine what those cattle had to look like coming off a ship back in the 1400s. Holy shit, man, 1500s. Like how they kept those things alive, because that was like a 2-month process getting across there. And like, you mad? I mean, it's hard enough trying, like say even on grass, you get a set of high risk calves out of the southeast, and you're running them on wheat pasture or just or grass down there. Like, it's hard enough keeping them alive for 30 days when they have everything they need. But can you imagine keeping them alive for 60 days on a fucking wooden boat?
And it probably wasn't as big as I think it is, that wooden boat. Shit.
No, not at all. And then starting these ranches out here. Yeah. Yeah, it's
They'd
wild.
have to haul the big calves or something like that. As calves.
Yeah. You had to have, I'd think. I mean, yeah, but then you still have to have a milk cow too, and yeah, it's insane. Like when you're bringing cattle over, crew can eat a whole lot because most of your space on your ship is going to be taken up with feed for your cattle, and yeah, that had been tough. And then you turn out in a brand new world nobody knows anything about. And oh, by the way, there's people here that already live here, and yeah, they're gonna try to kill you as well. And so yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Hey Matt, let me ask you something. Like, I mean, what I'm like, I guess you can say I'm about as green as they come. Like I said, my world is pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
Now I like, and I've been seeing it. People have been talking about it on TikTok, like the buckaroo stuff and this and that. Do you use like the spade type bits?
I've rode one, just like not very much. Like I tried one out for a couple days on a mare that I have, but I know a lot of guys that use them now. Like I used to. And it's still like when you hold a sure enough bridle bit in your hand. I mean, that's a pretty serious piece of metal. I mean, it's pretty heavy.
Going nowhere.
Yeah. And so it can be real severe, but you also like if you watch these like sure enough spade bit guys, how they operate, it takes a long time to get a horse in the bridle, and you watch them when like sure enough like accomplished good horsemen that rides a spade bit, and you watch their hands, and it is, I mean, they don't pull. I mean, it's just you lift, and that's it. I mean, because that bit is engineered to where it's all signal. Like there's a lot of leverage to the bit, but you're not using the leverage. If you're using it correctly, you're just using the signal. So like, and that's why they use the Rommel reins, and they like the natural fibers, whether it be rawhide or horsehair or whatever. Just and they're it's that's a real thing. Like I'm still I want to get a set of 8 foot split reins made out of mane hair, mane horse hair, just because there's a different type of life into with horsehair. Like leather feels good. Especially if like you got like like braided rope rein. Like you use an old lariat to braid a set of reins. Like it doesn't feel as good as leather, and leather doesn't feel as good as horsehair. And I've never rode those Romels so much, but like that I guess it's the same way. Just like when you get a really good set of braided Romels, it's it just kind of like there's just more life to the reins. So like they feel better, they react better, and so like that's one thing the Buckaroos are really big on is like that natural fiber type stuff, and they're like more traditional. Uh, and so they're even though they're packing this huge piece of metal around on their horse's mouth, they're very light. But they're also very well. They're very in tune with their horse too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I'm Mexican, but I understand that like that supposedly it's supposed to be kind of based off the vaquero type deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much
And I mean,
so.
they use all those reins, and it's funny. Like I'm surrounded by, they call them charros around here, where I'm
Mm.
around, or vaqueros, and they do that. They have those kind of big bits, and they have the reins, like the Romao reins, and they do ride a little bit different. Now that you mention it, you know what I mean. They do ride a little bit different.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
and Buckaroo is just the white version of Vaquero. So, I mean,
yeah, yeah. I
they
seen that.
yeah. So it's very much it's a bunch of white boys playing Spaniard basically. Uh, it's a bunch of white boys trying to be Mexican. Is uh, is
Yeah,
is kind of what the Buckaroo deal is, and but there's also like it's the same way with punchers. Like everybody respects the tradition, except they have a different tradition than the folks where we grew up, and Texas in particular, and then like and up and towards to where I grew up in the Great Plains area, like you didn't place a whole lot of value on a silver bit. Like you wanted a good bit. You wanted one that felt good in your horse. You wanted, but like you weren't hanging a bunch of silver on your headstall and your saddle. Like you might have a buckle, like a nice buckle, but your saddle's gonna be rough out, and it's gonna be pretty plain Jane, and like it's more like utility based, where the you know the more you get into the buckaroo, the vaquero style, the more, they're not even shy about it. It's like there's no purpose to it except that it looks cool. Like there, all that silver and whatnot. That like, and they'll tell you it's just because it looks cool, and I just like the hands that I grew up around. They didn't value that part. I mean, like they maybe had one good set of spurs. But if they had to go work, it was just like whatever, just an old set of spurs and a little grazer bit. That's what we used, and or like
yeah.
Boots was always talking about. most of his head stalls were made out of old Latigo because you just didn't let the Latigo go to waste, so you just cut it down and make a couple of head stalls out of it, and that's why like the puncher style is known for like those big honking head stalls that cover half of your horse's head, but that's because they just were reusing a Latigo.
Yeah, yeah, just yeah. I mean, me, I like I said, I find I'll I've I've caught a few, I've caught a few, but I will say that I kind of don't do much of the trends. I do whatever's comfortable for me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Half the times, you'll see a lot of guys. I wear tennis shoes when I go. Even when I work out in the brush, I'm gonna be. I guess you can't ever be too ready in case you fall off the horse and you gotta pull a little bullfighting moves or something. You got your tenny runners on, but yeah, I'm pretty simple when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at that I worked with I still work with a lot of Mexican guys. I don't have any Mexican guys on the Cowboy crew anymore, but I used to have a ton of them on the Cowboy crew back home, and then but there's a lot of Indian guys out here, and that's the same way. Like you never know what you were gonna see. Like if you hired a Mexican guy, like you had no idea what his outfit was gonna look like. You didn't know what he was gonna pull into the yard with his horses. You didn't know what his horses were gonna look like, and he might have an old barrel racing saddle with rubber stacked on the horn. You never know. Like it just
I don't know
some
if
of
I'd
these.
go like that.
Well, yeah, but just like they don't care. Like they're getting paid to do a job, and if it works, it works. And a lot of the Indian guys are like that too. They're wearing tennis shoes and like a basketball jersey or something, and can out rope everybody in the bunch.
Those, yeah.
It's just
Well,
wild how different it is.
it's funny. Well, one of my biggest things is I wear size 13 triple E, so it's hard for me to find a boot that's comfortable.
Oh yeah, you
But
got a big ass foot.
now that you mentioned it, one of the first persons that I ever saw was wearing tennis shoes and Roper was a white boy. It was pretty cool, crazy ass white boy. Roper's some bitch too, though.
Oh
And
yeah.
he had tennis shoes. I said, that's hillbilly some bitch right here, man. Yeah, I guess that's the way it is. Well,
Yeah.
and you know what's funny is, I mean, nowadays a lot of these little day laborers, they're into hip hop music and wear these little flat lid caps, and it's a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
different now.
It really is. Hey, I gotta take a leak real quick. We'll pause and I'll be right back.
And for
We're back now. Um, but so you said you're 39, so you're just couple years older than me.
Oh, you see what I thought you were older than me. I guess cowboying is a rough life.
I see. I started going gray when I was 17. So I've got a well, what I'm 30. I guess 30. I'll be 37 this year. So I got 20 years worth of gray hair built up. I I just look. It's funny when I went to college. Everybody thought I was like the middle aged guy going through a midlife crisis coming back to college, and no, I'm swear I'm 18.
I think it's probably the beard and the mustache. But I used to I used to have a mustache in high school, but then now that I'm older, I'm like, fuck that. I'm trying to look young as I possibly can.
Yeah, I
uh,
see. I I don't shave my face very often because it makes me feel like I've got a real fat face, and I got pretty chunky in college, so I'm a little self conscious about how my face when it gets all round, and so even though I can't grow like I grow a pretty good goatee and mustache, but like the rest of the facial hair doesn't come in very well, and I still don't shave it. Just that I don't want to look like I got a big old fat face. And
as I said, but sometimes them chunky guys can rope, man. You gotta,
fuck
shit.
yeah, I uh I can rope enough to get something done. I won't ever call myself a roper. Like I can get a job done, and it may take me several loops to do it, but I'll figure out a way to get them, and I'll run them down until they stop, and then I can put my loop on their head, and then we're good.
So, do you do That's funny. We're talking about loops. I was, once again, TikTok. TikTok's controversial, man. It's
I
about as
know it.
controversial as last year's election, or but 2020's like 2022. What is it? 2020's election? Yeah.
Yeah.
And uh, but they're big loops. Like I get the whole big loop thing, and I get that, but like I'm just. I mean, so in some cases it's badass. I've been noticing like I was just saying it works in certain places, in certain places it doesn't.
Hmm.
But I have seen that big loop work when they rope. I forgot what kind of catch it is, but you catch the two front legs and obviously
Yeah,
just
at figure eight. So like you neck them, and you typically have one of those braided rawhide Hondas on with it, so the tip of your loop is way heavier. So when you rope them around the neck, that Honda will hit, and then the loop will flip over, a turnover, and then yeah, they step through it like that. I've never been able to do that on purpose.
yeah
I've had it
yeah
happen one time, but I don't know how I did it.
it is what it is. Shit. But what is it? So what? I mean, but as far as obviously, I know you know how to throw a loop. I mean, you're in the business, so you do like what do you? Are you like a 60 foot type rope guy,
Yeah,
or do
see,
you like?
I started out just carrying a regular head rope. Just I always liked the softer rope, so I'd usually carry a extra soft or a double X soft, and and then I learned. I guess I learned dallying, but I started tying hard, and I've told this story many times, so the regular listeners might get tired of hearing it, but fuck off, you can hear it again. Um, when I was in the feedlot there at Syracuse, Kansas, doing that cow calf deal. We were tagging calves, and my brother-in-law was working for me at the time, and he roped this big calf. I mean, he was pushing 300 pounds, pretty big sucker and lively, and it was a long fucking day, hot, and he's like, hey, can you come heal this thing? And, yeah, no problem. And I was tied on, and so I went in and I picked, and I'd never healed tied on before. So like I went in, scooped two, and went to the horn, and I had that horn knot on there. So like I just I was going like I was just regular dally, and the next thing I know, like my coils got real hot and tight on on my offhand, and I was like, yeah, if I'm gonna have my offhand get banged up from roping, like I'm not tying on anymore. So I haven't tied on hard since then. But and then I moved out to Nevada, and a lot of these ranch rodeos out here, since it's more buckaroo country. Um, they're pretty strict on the rules, and so a lot of them won't allow rubber on the horn. Like you gotta have mule hide or latigo, or some sort of slick horn for a lot of these rodeos out here. So I was like, well, I guess I better figure out how to dally on a slick horn. And then I got to playing around with it, and like in the winter, the summer and the winter when we're real slow, like we have pretty much nothing but Holstein heifers, and that's the best roping practice ever. And so I got to where I was playing around a little bit, just letting rope slide and figuring out how to use that extra rope. So I carry 60 foot, and I rely on a thick horn, but I ride like a it's more of like an Arizona type. It's a low moose tree. I like swells. I rode a wade for a little bit, and I like them. They're comfortable, but like if something busts into, I want some swells in front of me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one thing about handling bigger ropes. I mean, we don't use them very often around here. Well, I don't use them. At least I don't. And my other buddy who I've been running with for we, and I can't think of anybody that I've worked with who's ever had one. I mean, I think the longest one that I had was like a 40-foot rope, ranch rope.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I imagine letting all them damn coils run would be a son of a gun. But as far
It's
as tied on,
go ahead. Go ahead.
as far as tied on, or or doubt it, there's just pros and cons. You know what I mean? I feel like I can handle a cow a hell of a lot better if I'm dallied versus being forced to be tied on. I can get closer a lot easier, whatever it takes. But
Yeah.
when I'm doctoring something, be tied on. That's funny. That's a lot of things too. It's just like down here, a lot of guys, what they do is, well, I've seen a lot of guys do a lot of dumb shit, but I have seen some guys like, for example, tie down a cow, and drive the trailer about 200-300 yards or whatever, maybe no more than 500 yards or whatever. I've also seen guys try to drag a cow somewhere, and that's usually not good when, you got it roped around the neck. But
No, that usually doesn't work very well. You can drag them a little ways, but
yeah, so that's what, like me, when I'm like, if I'm dallied, if I roll something, most times I can kind of maneuver that cow damn near all the way up to the trailer without having to tie her down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you seen them cowboys down there kind of towards your way. They pony cattle off the mountain. So like I said, it has its pros and cons. Dally or tied on.
Most of it has to do with where you're at and what kind of terrain you got. Because if you're in real brushy country, especially, I mean, like you get in that mesquite country of Texas, like yeah, you might have a clearing where you get two swings and you throw, and if you don't catch her, that bitch is gone. And also, once you catch her, like you're in the brush, so if you're trying to dally and hold your rope and your reins and everything while you're crashing through that brush, I mean, it probably ain't gonna work very well. So you catch her around the neck, you pitch her slack, and then you just bail in the mesquite after her, but you don't have to worry about your rope anymore because it's connected.
Yeah, I tell you about that. I tell you the last time we had that bullshitty session about my buddy. She tied on with a big old bull. Caught his mare off guard and pulled him to the side into the brush. He was tied on hard, man. Thank God one of the other The other cow hands jumped off and cut it. I mean, cut the rope, barely even touched it. So much tension on that thing, just popped. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
there's pros and cons.
Yeah, when you talk to some of these guys out here in Nevada, California, and Idaho, and like when you get in some real rough country, like when you're pushing cows off the mountain, and like there's a lot of times it's just a single cow trail on the side of that mountain. So yeah, you don't want to be tied hard on that shit. Like you let your rope run, and if she stops, she stops. If not, well, you just kind of say goodbye to your rope, and but you don't let them pull them down with you. And it's just like I said, it's more about terrain and whatnot. But um, I will say that the big thing about those long ropes is like if you can get away with it and you don't have to go crashing through the brush or whatever, and you don't absolutely need to be tied hard. Man, it's so much easier on your horse and the cattle both, because when you can just slide some rope and let them choke out there at about 40, 50 feet, and then you can ride up, pitch your slack, and trip them down. It just so much takes so much stress off so much work off your horse, and
Yeah, hell yeah.
but it takes like you gotta practice with that shit, and you gotta burn your hands a whole bunch to be where you can handle, and I don't have real big hands anyways. I got the Donald Trump syndrome. I got the small
Come on.
hands, and
No,
so I gotta use big coils on those long ropes. Like I can't do small coils. I don't have big enough hands for that shit.
yeah, that's. I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, that's totally accurate right there. And then you're right, man. I mean, you're out there roping with 30 foot ropes. When that thing stops, you're only about 30 feet away from
Yeah,
that one. Yeah,
yeah.
good luck. Yeah, I
It's
agree. I agree.
it's really cool though. Like I said, once you kind of figure out how to slide some rope and not pinch a finger off it, it's pretty damn cool to just slap a loop on and just you set your horse down and just take like one wrap and just let it buzz through there, and then just slow him down. I mean, that's the cool thing about that Charo thing, and I never really knew what it was meant for until and it was through like Instagram and TikTok is guys talking about why those Charo competitions exist now, and it was all to catch wild horses because you didn't want to break a leg. So you'd have your best roper out there. You'd run him into a box canyon and get him kind of running across you, going to your left, and your best roper would pitch out, his loop in about 4 coils, catch that thing, and then just let it slide and slow that sucker down, so you could get you a new mount, and yeah, and now, of course, Mexicans being Mexicans, they're gonna make a competition out of it. I mean, it's still that cowboy shit, and but the Mexicans being Mexicans, they're also gonna make a hell of a party out of it. So it's and so like it's cool hearing like the traditions behind those things, because um I don't know, you've been around as much as I have, and like a hand is a hand is a hand. It doesn't matter where they come from. Like like when they blow to something, or if you're asking them to, like, you're trying to get one through the gate or something, and when that guy just moves to the right spot, or just goes right to the hip and slaps one on, you're just like, I all the other bullshit about style goes out the window. You're like, oh, or this guy knows how to handle cattle. Like this guy can cowboy a little bit, and then it's on, because then we all know what the fuck we're doing.
Well, and I'll tell you, you're 100% right on that, because I mean, we've had these guys around here. They're more like I guess rodeo chattels, maybe you want to call them. But that's all they do. They don't work beef cattle. They don't do, they're not doing any of that. They're just basically just training
Charo.
for their little. Yes. Well, there's been some times where we've been short hands, and we'll call them. you can't expect them to know how to move a herd too much. They do know a little bit because they are around it, but I guess what do people call it? Now, I've been seeing this word on TikTok, stockmanship. They may not be up to par in their stockmanship, but them son of a bitches can throw a rope, and I've seen it, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a hand is a hand. It's when you need it for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I've seen
it's
these
kind of
boys.
like you get those team roper types. Like they may not
Mhm.
know how to get that cow through the gate, but if you say, "Hey, go rope that bitch," and they're yeah, they'll rope it. And what you like, it's kind of up to you after they get it caught. But
Oh,
but they'll catch that shit, you know. And like there's always like what being able to rope really well is like that's a skill that is always gonna like you may not have to do much. It's like being a really good bronc rider. Like you might not have to do anything else, but if you can get the nastiest horse gentle down enough to where your other hands can ride it, that's a skill and that's something that's gonna pay. It's the same way as just the fact that you can rope anything anywhere. Like you may not be able to hold a roe deer, you may not be able to sort, but if like when they say, "Hey, go rope that bitch," and you can get it done, like that's very valuable.
that's it. And it's funny. I got this buddy of mine, and I'm once again, there's the same family I mentioned was talking about from Pearsall. He's got his daddy was a fucking hand too, and his son was a damn good team roper. But he worked a few feedlots. His own thing is, he was just kind of he was not that good of a horseman, you know. And I remember his dad. Me and him were always competing because we worked together for a good 5 years. So
Mm.
you know, he always understood that as well. He competed with me, I with him. So you know, we'd go out there and rope cows, and he'd get mad if I'd catch it or whatever. But anyways, his dad, you know, had a horse one time, and he wouldn't let his son ride it. You know what I mean? But he brought it for me to ride it. So it's like, yeah, that like horsemanship and stuff like that. You know, not everybody's got it. Some people can rope, but they can't ride horses and even like that. I've seen team ropers when we go out there, and yeah, they'll get a loop on it, but after that, they don't know how to, that cow's not running the strip and shoot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you don't just turn left and then trot behind them going to the strip and shoot. You know, like no, you gotta go get your rope back. Like that ain't your rope until you take it back. It's it's like I'll see pictures of people with their horses. You know, they got their arm around their horse and no halter on it. And it's like, can you catch your horse like this? And well, that horse ain't caught. Like you might think he's caught, but if he decides, hey, I'm out of here, there ain't a goddamn thing you're gonna do with your arm around his neck to stop him. If they really don't want you on their neck, like you ain't gonna be. Like you're not caught. They are not caught until you got a rope or until you got a halter or a rope on them. And same way, like once you rope a cow, that rope is no longer yours until you go get it back. Like that's it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that story because it's like, I mean, never mind the rope. That cow ain't off the property till it's loaded. And
Mm-hmm.
that one particular day was we were short some hands. Well, you know, that's the way all the stories start. We were short some hands, but
Oh yeah.
the, my buddy calls a few team ropers. He owns an arena around here, and then I'm like, golly, do we really got to bring these team ropers? He's like, Bernie, it's 6 Santa Gertrudis cows or heifers that were out there that we needed to get off the property. And sure enough, I mean, them boys chased after them, and they'd get them headed down, and then next thing you know, fish was on, and it's put it on a fight. And here I come, and that's what my buddy told me. He goes, don't let them all go chase them cows, let them rope. You just make sure they don't jump off the property, and just stick behind, and just so they'd be struggling. And here I'd come, heel them down, and whatever, and then tie them down for them or whatever I do. We ended up catching all of them. one of them guys wanted to tie one down. By that time, one of the team ropers roped one, tried to load it by himself on a little 3-year-old filly. Damn near pulled him and his filly into the trailer from the side. I mean, it's a good thing that I still had it. I still had a heel loop that was loose just in case she got away, and I stopped her from going any further. But then I go get the catch. We'll get the truck so we can pick up all them heifers. The next thing you know, I'm watching one, and we're already drinking beer. I see her slowly getting up. I'm like, oh shit, man! I probably should put a rope on that one. It looks like she ain't gonna. She's getting up, and by that time, when I had gotten the truck stuck right while I was trying to load her. Next thing you know, here's that little heifer, but coming up, runs every single cowboy up on the trailer. That's just the way it is. Like it ain't yours, so she's in the trailer, man.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the big thing from the big difference from the arena to the outside, and that includes the feedlot too. It's just like that horse, like if your horse blows in the morning, you're either gonna hit the ground or you're not. But 8 seconds makes no difference. That whistle, somebody can whistle at 8 seconds, but that don't make a goddamn bit of difference, because that horse is either gonna throw you or you're gonna ride it out. And the 8 seconds thing just came, that came into play because cowboys being cowboys, like the rodeo would never end if we were able to set all of our own rules and it was just like be the best cowboy. Like that's a never ending competition. And but the same way in the when you're on the roping side, like yeah, if you rope something in the arena, well, you just you get your job done, and then you chase her back to the strip and shoot, and somebody on the ground is going to get your rope back for you. But if you rope something outside, well, how and especially if you're tied on, well, if you're tied on and that rope doesn't break, well, that is no longer your rope. Like, you got to go get that back. You got to go reclaim your rope, and you got to know what to do with your slack and everything. Once you get it caught, anybody can catch a cow at some point with a loop. Like even the worst roper that has ever lived can still get a loop on something. Is what you do afterwards is what makes you a cowboy.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. That's funny you said, because I've caught some things that I wish that I wouldn't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Been lucky enough that I didn't get jacked up, but I mean, my friends will tell you, they've seen me shake a time or two, and I'm a big guy, but you get some animals out there, that are rank, man.
Mm-hmm.
You get some that are, and I mean, it's just like, and now you're at the mercy of the horse, and hoping that horse, keeps it together. You know what I mean? Till somebody puts a heel loop on it or something, or another head loop. And like I tell you, then you're running a 30-foot rope. You know what I mean? Fuck.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's hard to tie one down. I mean, like you can always bust one, but like to do like the proper trip where you pitch your slack and ride around them and tie up the catch their back legs and trip them down, like that's pretty tough to do on a 30-foot rope.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I mean there was. Yeah. I mean, I think I gotta tell you the two probably scariest times that I've ever had, the most intense ones were Brahmas. They were Brahmas. One was a bull, one was a cow. They were both big, both had horns. Horned cattle, not my favorite. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they ain't got horns, I ain't afraid of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can stomp you, but those horns will fuck you up.
Yeah, they will. And that's where you got to be a cowboy.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
hell yeah.
but that's also where I like that 60-foot rope because, like I said, I can take one wrap and let it slide, and pinch it off about 40 foot, and just let them choke out there, and then I can make the big circle around them and lay them down, and and it don't always work great. Like there's sometimes where it should work just like that, and it just don't. For whatever reason, like you go to ride around them, and they'll like step over the rope or something, and you don't get those back legs wrapped up or whatever. There's always it's was it Mike Tyson's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose, and that's kind of how it is. Like when you got a plan until that rope comes tight, and then shit goes sideways.
If you get lucky, maybe you'll get tangled up while you're hauling ass away from
Yeah,
it.
no shit. I tell you that there was one time I was just putting cattle like it was kind of lazy afternoon type deal, and we had doctored and we'd doctored quite a few cattle that day, and then the way we do it, a lot of feedlots you put them in a hospital pen and you'll take them home a couple days later, but we treat them and go straight back to their home pen, and we doctored quite a few, and it was a pretty good day. And those are always that's my favorite part of the day is putting cattle back because it's like I like to ride my young horses then because you get to do some sorting on it, and it really teaches you to respect the cattle because your horse doesn't know a goddamn thing, so you got to give him a lot of cushion to get it done because like if you're sorting on your good horse, you know how it is like all it takes is one little step or even a head fake to turn something back and then or to move to the side. But you're on a colt, uh, you need about 2 extra seconds to make that movement because you're riding a snaffle bit or bozell or whatever, and also you're probably hammering them in the shoulder to try to get them to step over. And yeah,
Yeah, you
it's
need that.
I forget where I was going with this story, but
Talking
what
about
were
respect the cat.
oh yeah, and yeah, but then there's some cattle, and especially when they get hot, you know how this goes. When they get hot, they ball up and they don't move, or they're going somewhere and they don't care about the horse that's standing in front of them. They're just going to go. And
Yeah.
I've seen some guys like some pretty green guys that have a pretty nice horse. Uh, just get you can look at him. They got that deer in the headlights look when one of those some old Bramer type cow or steer that just is hot and on the fight and it's like fuck you. They're not even trying to take you down. They're just like no, I'm going there. I don't care that you're in my way. I'm coming over the top of you. And and when that happens, you just see eyes go big, and you're just like ah. And but it's and on a green horse like that can go many different ways, and most of them aren't good.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, they're not good.
Yeah, like every now and then you'll actually get one that's like that has just like that natural instinct, and they'll be able to step where they need to. But like you said, 9 out of 10 times that horse is going to get broadsided by a little sickly, angry steer, and a lot of those horses don't really recover from that either. They
Yeah.
every time you try to sort something, they're backpedaling from you. Like it's
Yep. And I've
um
I've been that.
yeah. So but I've always liked that part of the feedlot is and a lot of guys will bitch about it because because it's afternoon and it's hot. But I'm just like this is basically team sorting that we're doing here in the afternoon, and we're getting paid, and you don't even have to be good at it. Like you don't have to win to get paid. Like we're basically going to a team sorting where we're still drawing a check every time, regardless of how you
Yeah.
do.
not only that, like for a working cowboy, I mean, I can tell you that a good sorting horse is all a good horse in the pen is good. You know, one that's good with gaits, one that can cut. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you know that. I'm sure there's a lot of gaits for your ass.
Oh yeah, that's 95% of what a feedlot cowboy does is just work a gait. That your horses get really good with lateral movement if they're in the feedlot for very long. They'll know how to move their feet because they don't got any other choice.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's you know you can sour a horse pretty easy in a feedlot, but you can also like you can cram a ton of knowledge in a horse in a real short amount of time. Just taking them through feedlot pens and just doing your normal feedlot stuff. And if you got a horse that's got any sort of cow sense to him, that shit bumps up about 10 levels just because I mean it's just all repetition.
God dang.
I had some point that I was going with that, but I can't remember it now. So it wasn't that important anyway. I'm sure, but nah, man, it's I like talking to different people to just to see how they do things, and
Yeah, it's pretty
you
cool. Yeah, that's
you can always learn something new. Like there's I don't know I've learned more from doing this podcast than just about anything. You know, outside of just like working with really good hands, like just talking to different guys. And the cool thing is it doesn't matter like what part of the country you're from, what kind of cattle you're used to running. At the end of the day, there's still horses and there's still cows, and it's still the same type of people that take care of them. And so, regardless of what your style is, like you can always be like, hey, how do you do this? And the guy's gonna like if that guy doesn't know what you're talking about, he's either not a cowboy or it's just because it's a completely different part of the world. But generally, like you don't have to clarify on a question. You can ask a guy like, "Hey, what's this? You know, like what rope you packing, or are you dallying? You tying hard? Are you on slick horn? Whatever." And like, are you loading in trailer, or are you crossing creeks? What you know? And there's like you know something about him because he rides horses and takes care of cattle.
yeah. I was that's like the way they work. Like I said, the way they work up north, it's so different. Like for me, I've freaks me out. It's totally different than what I do. You know what I mean? I also heard that even like the elevations make everything different down there. You know what I mean? When you're higher up there, that the wind, you know, so it's a whole lot of different deals over there.
Oh yeah, like you'll you know, and they've done a lot of research on it, and they're kind of they've started breeding for cattle that do better at a higher elevation because before we knew anything about it, you'd take some cattle from wherever and you'd take them up to a mountain pasture for the summer, and all of a sudden you get it almost looks like a hardware type deal, but it's not hardware. It's just it's called ends up being congestive heart failure, and it's just from the altitude, and and there's not really like it's all genetic. So like if they've got the bad gene for altitude sickness, well, you're just never going to be able to run those cattle in high altitude. Like you're just they might still be really good cattle, but just not at that place. Like it doesn't work. And there's not like you can treat it a little bit, but you can't keep running them at high altitude, or their heart's gonna collapse on them. They're gonna die. And so like you can take them down to a lower elevation and probably sell them, and somebody would probably get along good with them, but That mountain pasture you got, it ain't gonna work. Not with those. And it's the same thing. Like you get a bunch of a real hairy, you know, like your traditional Angus type cattle, just like real hairy, short, squatty, and you put them in South Texas, and they're not gonna do worth a fuck.
Oh yeah, we were a couple of Charlets, and we worked, and they take it pretty rough compared to all, compared to anything that's long eared for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, and long hair too. That stuff gets on, or like you take out of like the Ozark area of Missouri, where they get a lot of that fescue grass, and cattle do really good on fescue grass until you take them off of fescue grass, and then it's something about the mineral content. They don't lose their hair. Like the hair will die, it doesn't continue to grow, but it doesn't slough off either. So like a black steer will turn like a real light colored brown if they got the coming off of fescue into the feedlot, and then they're just hot all the time. And then when they're hot, they get stressed, and when they're stressed, that's when your sickness happens. And though there's nothing wrong with those cattle, it all has to do with where the feed that they had.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's a lot of shit, right there from working in them feedlots. Shit.
Yeah, you learn it pretty quick. It's especially when you get in those real big yards where, like I said, you just get so many freaking cattle. We used to get we had an order buyer out of South Texas. He was more towards the coast though, I think, than you are. And we'd get just like straight up humpback Bramers, just silver humpback Bramers, and in the summer, you could ride in that pen, check the water tank, and ride out and be fine. Like you wouldn't have to, you didn't even hardly have to look at those cattle. But in the winter, son of a bitch, they would fall apart. But they don't like cold. They originated in India, and then their ancestors are from India, and their immediate families from South Texas. They're not used to that dry hot or dry cold shit. It's just that ain't their jam, and they don't do well in it.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the deal, Mr. Command? What's you horses? What do you, I mean? You're pretty good, well, I'm sure you're a pretty good horseman. You train your own horses and all that.
Yeah, so my dad raised horses growing up. I'm adopted, and so my dad is my adopted dad is who I call my dad. I started. They took me in when I was 10, and that was my first experience with my second time on horse. We did a 23-mile ride through the canyons. That was my second time on horse, and I also caught the flu at the same time. So the next day, not only was I sore as hell, but I was running like 104-degree fever. And boy, if you would have caught me on that day, I would have never. I never wanted to see a horse again, but also I didn't have much of a choice after that. Just like. That's what we did. So I grew up riding colts and stuff, and like I said, I'm a bronc stayer oner. Like I can usually stay on them long enough to get their head pulled around and get them circling, and but I've probably never made a pretty bronc ride in my life. Like I've stayed on a bunch of them. I don't get bucked off a whole lot, but that's because I try to cheat them around so I get their head pulled around and then. But
yeah.
I'm more of a like out here. Everybody likes those big, tall, leggy horses because they gotta make the big circle and cover some ground. But I like the short, squatty, stocky cow horse types, and And
Yeah, me too.
most of my cowboy career has been spent in a feedlot at this point, and those are the best types you want for the feedlot because that's what you're doing. You're working a cow all day. I don't have to cover a whole lot of country, but I want them to be quick side to side and have a good handle on them. So I like I use a little more aggressive, I like a twisted wire snaffle uh, to get them started. But I like them soft in the face, but I use my feet a ton. I try not to be in their face a whole lot because that's one thing about a feedlot is you're gonna be in their face just because of the job. So I try to use my feet more than anything. Just because of the nature of the work, you're gonna be in their face, and you know how it is. The more you're in a horse's face, the worse the horse is.
Yeah, yeah. They're just fighting and fight. But I mean, sometimes they get smart enough to not fight it anymore. But and they respond. They respond more than fight it. Once you get them there. But yeah, you're right. Using the feet is for sure. It's
Yeah.
funny you say shit like that, and people don't. It's funny we're having this conversation, and it's like you see a lot of people these days in the horse business, and they'll say shit like has done ranch work or da da da. But there's little details in or at least in your conversation that I can see that it's not just not just some Facebook posts. You know what I mean, or some bullshit. You know what I mean?
Oh
But yeah,
no.
you're right.
And that's one thing I think what's it has enabled me to get guys like you on the show because I may not be the best hand. I know I'm not the best hand, but I've done the work and so they're like what I'm asking about. Like I'm not trying to be your like your Instagram cowboy. Like I had plenty of chances to do that before I started this podcast. I started the podcast because I thought guys like me and you don't have anything to listen to talking about this type of shit. Like you can read some books and you can talk to your buddies, but like when you're out there working or you're driving to a job and you want to listen to something, like I want to listen to some cowboy shit every now and then, and because that's what I
Yeah.
do for a living, and it's in a feedlot, but like I've also been outside, and I know how this shit works, and but I like to talk to guys like you that I mean, like we have a completely different style of cowboying. But like I said, at the end of the day, we still know what the fuck the other guy's talking about because it's the same job at the end of the day. And it's no, I like hearing how different people from different parts of the country handle these things because like if you want to talk about like real diversity, look at the cowboy community. Like there's just like so many different flavors of cowboying, just depending on what part of the country you're from, uh, and there's always something you can learn from talking to people, even if it's the wrong thing. Like you can if you learn what not to do, you can still learn from talking to another hand.
Yeah, and it's funny you said because I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I didn't just start yesterday, but I can tell you that if I ever, whenever we're working them calm charlets, we work a set of charlets as well with this one other guy. It's usually twice a year, and I mean they're calm. You know what I mean? If I had to, you know, I guess instead of breaking one out of the herd, if I can throw a rope inside, that's something like we don't really do down here that much. How people can be standing right by the herd out in the pasture. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, down here it's like, God damn, we get a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? That bitch gonna see you from a long ways. But I mean, if I ever had the opportunity to incorporate that, or what I've seen from other people, of course I'm gonna use that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny is like I kind of learned these buckaroo loops just because it suits me a little bit better in the feedlot because I don't have enough room to line one out and run it down and rope it. Like there's by the time you're almost ready to throw, you got a fence coming up or you got the bunk coming up. And so it just before I started learning like the turnovers and the backhand loops, even before I'd tried any of the buckaroo shit, I'd do like a little underhand loop, running from left to right, or I'd throw a Johnny Blocker loop to catch heels, same way, running from left to right. But I'd just push my calves up into the corner of that pin, and then I'm not chasing them down. I'm not stressing them any more than I have to, and then I've got a better shot at them. And whereas your typical deal is just like, well, just go rope that thing, and if you got a half section or whatever that you're working with, that's perfect because you can get up there in plenty of time, line them out, rope them, and get it done. But it just you don't like you got to be pretty sneaky in the feedlot to be able to just jump up on one and just blow to them and rope them. Like you got to be pretty sneaky just to get to the point where you're gonna blow to them. So it just worked way better for me to push them into a corner, and that way I'm not chasing them down. And hey, if I miss, just if I can kind of hold roe deer by myself, I still got another shot, and I don't have to chase them down. So that's where I started learning the buckaroo type loops, and they're also they're not real suited for like wheat pasture doctrine. Like, no, you gotta chase that sucker down and rope him, and he's not gonna give you 6 shots while you're standing there, like he would if he's got a steel pipe fence in a corner. Oh, go ahead.
I'll tell you, but it's funny because, like I said, controversial TikTok, but you're hitting it like right on point, like where they work, how they work, where they don't work, and I mean, be honest with you, I've never really given it any thought, but I've been stuck with what I've known, but I mean, you're definitely breaking it down, like. How, when, and where, and how it's effective. I mean, it's pretty damn badass. I think maybe you should go on TikTok and settle all this beef.
Maybe. I need to. I've been looking at TikTok here more lately. I've been dragging my feet because I have one, and like my stuff does pretty well. But when it comes to social media, I'm more of just a meme guy, and memes don't really translate to TikTok very well because you got to have a video, and so you can do like the slideshows or whatever. But I think I'm gonna just have to start carrying my my GoPro more, and then I need to just like start putting up clips from these podcasts on TikTok more because they do pretty well. And as far as like being able to just actually share stuff, TikTok's probably the best platform for that. Every other platform is so like they censor the shit. Like TikTok, as far as I know, like they don't shadow ban you. Like they'll pull stuff that they don't like pretty often. But as far as I know, they don't shadow ban you. Like I've got 20,000 followers on Facebook. And I posted a video or a post earlier today, and I'd be surprised if 300 people saw it.
They do shut down.
242 people, and I posted this 10 hours ago, and I got 21,000 people that follow me. Like it's fucking retarded. Like they don't share, they don't show any of my stuff on Facebook, and as far as from what I've seen, like TikTok's pretty bad about pulling stuff that they don't like. They just they'll pull it down, but I don't know about the shadow ban thing. I just haven't looked into it enough. But
and it's funny because TikTok does pick up followers and likes a lot more than Facebook. So you're probably right about that one. Yeah, but I think it's. I mean, I think I was. I think you've had a damn good conversation, considering that I'm sorry, I got a neighbor pulling up.
No, you're good.
Going. Yeah, I think the way you break it down, the the needs for certain things and all that. Yeah, that's something that right now for sure that on Facebook is being like, I mean, on that TikTok is like everybody's talking about, buckaroos versus punchers and this and that. But you got to know everything's got its time and place and stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like everybody likes the rivalry. And I'm kind of torn in between the two worlds anymore because I grew up puncher style, and now I live out here in buckaroo country, and I'm just really a hybrid of the two. And but I love the rivalry. Like I'll always my first instinct is to talk shit on the buckaroos just because, even though I'm carrying a 60-foot rope and I've got a mule hide on my horn, like. I'm still like, if I'm gonna talk shit on anybody, it's gonna be on the buckaroos first, just because I grew up in Southeast Colorado, just in cowpuncher country. So those are my people, and so I'm gonna stick with them, but I'm still gonna rope with a long rope and a slick horn because I kind of like it, and I'm I've got some silver in my collection now too, but I'm also very careful with it. Like it's not my everyday, using bit. But also at the end of the day, like we were talking earlier, and we probably it's probably getting, it's late your time, so we'll kind of, I think we'll wrap up on this. But like a hand recognizes a hand, like just the way when they get in the saddle, and like when it comes to go to work, you can see how they carry themselves, and you're like, all right, I don't have to worry about that guy. Like I don't have to bark orders at that guy. I can tell that guy knows where to be, and that's more than anything. Like I hate having to continually direct people as to what to do. Like I'll explain it to you, and then after about the third time of explaining it to you, like, you're obviously not going to learn it. So I'm going to just go ahead and consider you no help.
Yeah,
and so like I don't care what they're packing as far as rope goes. I don't care if they're wearing chinks or armitas or bat wings or bells or shotguns. If they know where to be at the right time, and when push comes to shove, if I need somebody to come in and pick up two, and they can do that, then like we get along just fine.
Yeah. I can definitely drink to that.
Yes, sir. Well, Bernie, I really enjoyed talking to you both times. Like I think you're a pretty interesting fella, and you got some. I like talking to you. So anyway, I appreciate your time, man. This has been a fun time again, and yeah, you're welcome back anytime. Like I consider you amigo now, so we'll.
Yeah. We'll have to see one of these days, man. Maybe we in podcast. We're supposed to go work some cattle, I think, sometime this week. It's getting pretty rough over here. There ain't been no rain, and like I said,
I heard that.
It was about 100 degrees yesterday, so that just makes things drier. And it's funny, we're talking about it. We're fixing go pull some calves off some Charolais cows. So maybe one of these we'll have to get a podcast going or something. Straight from the cattle pens.
Hell yeah, I'm down with that. We'll stay in touch, and I appreciate your time, man. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and move your ass. We're burning daylight.